The Duke's mistress called at midnight and he left. So she took her son and $1 million, and she'll never return. The rain hammered against the windows of Evermere Hall at 12:03 a.m. when the landline rang. Chloe Wrenford, Duchess of Evermere, woke in the darkness to hear her husband's voice, low, urgent, speaking a name that didn't belong in their bedroom. Sarah? Through the receiver, a woman's voice trembled with need. I can't do this alone. Please, I need you now. Marcus, dressed in yesterday's clothes, mumbled something about a gallery emergency and left. No kiss, no explanation. Just the sound of his car disappearing into the night while Chloe lay frozen in their bed, finally understanding that some betrayals happen so quietly you don't hear them until they're already over. Hello, lovely. If you're enjoying this story of a woman who chose herself over waiting, I'd be so grateful for a like or subscribe. It helps me bring you more tales where strength means knowing when to walk away. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your presence reminds me why these stories matter. 1. Chloe Wrenford had perfected the art of not seeing what she didn't want to know. But at 12:03 a.m. on a rain-soaked Tuesday in 1978, that particular skill failed her completely. She'd been drifting in that space between sleep and waking when the phone rang. Marcus answered on the second ring, his voice emerging rough from sleep, then sharpening into something else entirely. Sarah? What's wrong? Chloe went very still. She knew that name. Sarah Vale. The elegant art dealer Marcus had mentioned occasionally over the past year. Gallery openings, business dinners, perfectly legitimate reasons for a duke to know a woman in London's art world. Except it was past midnight, and Sarah Vale was crying. I need you. The woman's voice carried through the receiver, desperate and intimate. Now, I can't do this alone. Marcus sat up, already reaching for his clothes. I'm coming. 20 minutes. He dressed in the dark yesterday's shirt, crumpled trousers, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Chloe watched through half-closed eyes, her heart a stone in her chest. Gallery emergency, he muttered, though she hadn't asked. Investor trouble. I'll be back by morning. He left without kissing her, without looking back, just the click of the bedroom door and the sound of his footsteps fading down the corridor. Chloe lay in the darkness and counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3, waiting for the shock to hit, for tears, for rage. Instead, she felt only a terrible crystalline clarity. This wasn't the first time. It couldn't be. The pattern had been there all along, hiding in plain sight. Late meetings, weekend trips to London, the expensive restaurant receipt she'd found in his jacket pocket last month, 2 meals, champagne, a bill that suggested celebration rather than business. She'd chosen not to see it, had told herself that dukes had complicated lives, that she was being paranoid, that their marriage was solid even if it wasn't passionate. But midnight phone calls didn't lie. Chloe rose from bed, her body moving with automatic precision. She walked to Marcus's wardrobe and began searching methodically through pockets, drawers, the small leather journal he kept in his desk. She found the restaurant receipt again Mayfair, 3 weeks ago, when he'd told her he was in Parliament. She found a note in elegant handwriting. Thank you for last night. You make me feel seen. S. She found a phone number scrawled on hotel stationery. When she checked it against the caller ID box beside the bed, that clunky LED device Marcus had insisted on installing the numbers matched. Sarah Vale. Not a single emergency. A pattern. Chloe sat at Marcus's mahogany desk and pulled out her grandfather's old notebook, the one where she'd been tracking estate finances since Marcus had asked her to help with the books 5 years ago. Her grandfather, bless him, had left her well provided for. A trust fund worth substantial money, carefully managed, legally hers. When she and Marcus married, he'd suggested merging some of it with estate investments for the family's future. She'd agreed, wanting to be a good partner, wanting to prove she could contribute. But she'd been careful. She'd kept control. £1 million remained in liquid assets, under her own name, separate from anything Marcus could touch. Chloe booted up the house's terminal, bulky, beige, the height of modern technology, and logged into her bank account. Her hands shook as she typed, but her mind was perfectly clear. She transferred £1 million into a new account, only her name, only her access. The confirmation printed with a mechanical whir. She folded the paper carefully and tucked it into her handbag. Then she went to wake her son. Oliver Ollie slept sprawled across his bed, 6 years old and beautiful, one arm flung over his favourite stuffed dinosaur. Chloe knelt beside him and touched his shoulder gently. "Ollie, sweetheart, wake up." He blinked at her, confused. "Mummy?" "We're going on an adventure," she whispered. "A very long sleepover. But we need to leave now, while it's still dark. Can you be very brave and very quiet?" He was too sleepy to question it. Just nodded and let her dress him in warm clothes, his dinosaur clutched tight. Chloe packed one suitcase, essentials only, clothes for both of them, documents, marriage certificate, trust papers, Ollie's birth certificate, photographs of her mother and grandfather, both long gone, the jewellery they'd given her, her mother's pearls, her grandfather's pocket watch. She left behind everything Marcus had gifted her, the diamond necklace he'd presented on their wedding day, the sapphire earrings for their 5th anniversary, the emerald bracelet he'd given her last Christmas, perhaps already deep in whatever this thing with Sarah was. She didn't want his guilt gifts. She wanted her life back. The note took longest to write, 3 drafts before she got it right. "Marcus, I know about Sarah. I know this wasn't the first time you've left our bed to go to her. I have taken Oliver somewhere safe. I have taken my money, not yours, never yours. Only what my grandfather left me, what was always mine. I will ensure Oliver is provided for legally. You are his father, and I won't take that from him. But I will never return to the life where I wait for you to choose me. I will never come back to the version of myself that allowed this. See." She left it on his pillow, propped against the lamp so he couldn't miss it. At 4 a.m, she and Ollie slipped out through the kitchen door. The estate driver, bleary-eyed and yawning, thought she was catching an early train to visit a sick friend. She let him think that. As the car pulled away from Evermere Hall, Chloe turned to look back one final time. The house loomed against the pre-dawn sky, stone and history and weight, beautiful and suffocating in equal measure. She'd been 24 when she married Marcus, swept up by his charm and the fairy tale of becoming a duchess. She'd thought love would be enough. Thought she could make him happy. Thought if she tried hard enough, performed the role perfectly enough, he'd eventually see her. But you can't make someone see you when they're looking somewhere else. "Mummy?" Ollie's sleepy voice interrupted her thoughts. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere new," Chloe said, taking his small hand in hers. "Somewhere we can be ourselves." She didn't know yet where that would be. Didn't have a plan beyond getting far away from Evermere and the life that had slowly been erasing her. But as the car carried them through the dark countryside toward the train station, Chloe made herself a promise. This was the last time she'd see Evermere Hall as home. The last time she'd measure her worth by whether a man chose her over his mistress. The last time she'd disappear into a role that demanded she be everything except herself. She had £1 million, a 6-year-old son, and absolutely no idea what came next. But for the first time in years, Chloe felt like she could finally breathe. 2. The coastal town of Brackenport looked exactly as Chloe remembered, from a childhood visit faded Victorian buildings, chipped paint on the seafront hotels, and a sort of comfortable shabbiness that suggested people here had more important things to worry about than appearances. Perfect. She checked into a family-run inn under her maiden name, Chloe Marsh. The elderly proprietor, Mrs. Davies, accepted cash without question and showed them to a small room with twin beds, floral wallpaper, and a view of the grey autumn sea. "Breakfast is at 8, Mrs. Davies said kindly. "Your boy looks done in. Let him sleep as long as he needs." Ollie was already climbing into bed, dinosaur tucked under his chin. Chloe sat beside him until his breathing deepened, then allowed herself to simply sit in the quiet room and feel everything she'd been holding at bay. The exhaustion hit first, then the fear. Then, surprisingly, a small flutter of something that might have been relief. She'd actually done it. Left, taken control. Walked away from a life that was killing her by inches. The question was, what now? Morning brought the first real test. Chloe took Ollie downstairs for breakfast and stared at the coin-operated coffee machine in the hallway with complete bewilderment. She'd had staff at Evermere, people who brought coffee on silver trays who knew exactly how she took it. She'd never had to operate a machine that required exact change. She fed in coins too many, apparently, because coffee overflowed everywhere, splashing across the counter and pooling on the floor. "Oh no, oh no. Mummy made a fountain," Ollie giggled, delighted. Despite everything, Chloe found herself laughing too. Actual laughter, messy and real. When had she last laughed like that? "Need help?" A woman appeared with a mop, grinning. She was perhaps Chloe's age, with wild curly hair pulled into a ponytail and a toddler balanced on one hip. "That machine's a menace. You have to jiggle the coin return or it goes mental. I'm so sorry about the mess." "Don't be. Happens twice a week at least." The woman set down the toddler, who immediately ran to stare at Ollie's dinosaur. "I'm Isla. I run the cafe round the corner. You just moved here?" "Sort of. Maybe. I don't know yet." Chloe realised how that sounded. "It's complicated." "Isn't it always?" Isla mopped efficiently, running away from something or toward something. The directness should have offended her. Instead, it felt refreshing. Both, I think. "Fair enough. Come by the cafe later if you want. Coffee's better than this machine, and the boys can terrorise each other instead of us." She left before Chloe could respond, and somehow that small interaction, normal, friendly, uncomplicated by titles or expectations, made Chloe's throat tight. She spent the morning walking Brackenport streets with Ollie, exploring charity shops and the small library, eating fish and chips from newspaper wrapping on a bench overlooking the sea. "This is different," Ollie observed, ketchup on his chin. "Good different or bad different?" He considered seriously. "Just different. Where's Daddy?" Chloe's chest tightened. "Daddy's at home. We're having some time, just us right now." "Like a holiday?" "Something like that." That afternoon, restless and needing purpose, Chloe found herself at Isla's cafe. It was small, cheerful, slightly chaotic locals reading newspapers, mothers with prams, the smell of fresh bread and strong coffee. Isla looked up from behind the counter. "You came? Grab a seat. Coffee's on the house today. Call it a welcome tax." While Ollie and Isla's son Danny played with toy cars in the corner, Chloe found herself in real conversation for the first time in years. Not Duchess conversation, polite, careful, designed to offend no one. Real talk about sleepless nights, and Lego pieces that appeared in impossible places, and the terror of raising small humans. "You're good at this," Isla said, refilling Chloe's cup. "Listening, I mean. Most people just wait for their turn to talk." "I had a lot of practice being quiet," Chloe admitted. "Well, you don't have to be quiet here. Fair warning." On her way back to the inn, Chloe passed a shabby guest house with a "For sale must go" sign. She stopped and stared. The building was tired but charming, 3 stories, bay windows facing the sea, original Victorian details visible beneath peeling paint, the sort of place that could be beautiful again with work and care. An idea began forming, dangerous, impossible, exactly what she needed. The next morning, Chloe walked into the estate agent's office in her jeans and borrowed raincoat, looking nothing like a duchess. The agent, a middle-aged man with an oily smile, barely glanced up. "Can I help you, love?" "The guest house on Marine Parade. I'd like to make an offer." He blinked. "That's a commercial property. Needs significant work. The asking price..." "I'd like to survey it first, obviously, but I'm a cash buyer. I can move quickly." That got his attention. Over the next hour, Chloe surprised both of them. Years of managing Evermere's accounts had taught her about surveys, interest rates, market values. She asked sharp questions about occupancy rates, seasonal tourism, local competition. The agent's condescension evaporated. By the end, they'd scheduled a viewing for the next day. "Might I ask," he said carefully, "what brings you to Brackenport?" "A fresh start," Chloe said simply. That night, she sat with Isla at the cafe after closing, teaching her about contract negotiations over lukewarm tea. In exchange, Isla walked her through basic bookkeeping, the real kind, not the theoretical management Chloe had done at Evermere. "You're smart," Isla said, studying her. "Really smart. What did you do before?" "I was," Chloe hesitated. "I was married to someone important. I managed his household." "And now?" "Now, I'm going to manage my own life." 2 weeks later, Chloe owned the Sea Glass Guest House. £120,000, paid outright, leaving her with substantial savings and a building that needed everything. She spent her days learning to plaster walls, paint trim, install curtain rods. She burned scrambled eggs 3 times before managing edible ones. She assembled flat-pack furniture while Ollie read instructions like a tiny foreman, both of them laughing when they inevitably had leftover screws. The work was hard, physical, real in a way that managing staff had never been, and it felt wonderful. 1 month after leaving Evermere, Chloe tucked Ollie into bed in their new home, their actual home, that she'd bought with her own money. "Mummy," Ollie's voice was small, "are you and Daddy getting divorced?" The question she'd been dreading. Chloe sat on the edge of his bed, choosing words carefully. "Daddy and I need some time apart so I can remember who I am, and so he can decide who he wants to be. But no matter what happens between us, he's still your daddy. That doesn't change." "Do you still love him?" Chloe thought about Marcus, the charm that had swept her away at 24, the distance that had crept in over 8 years, the midnight phone call that had finally made her see clearly. "I love the person I thought he was," she said honestly. "But I love you and me more. And sometimes you have to choose yourself first, even when it's scary." Ollie considered this with his serious 6-year-old face. "I'm glad we're here. I like the sea." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." After he slept, Chloe stood at the window looking out at the dark water, and for the first time in 8 years, she had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But it would be her choice, her life, her terms, and that was worth every uncertain moment. 3. Marcus Wrenford, Duke of Evermere, woke at dawn to find his wife gone. Not just temporarily absent, gone. The wardrobe half empty, Oliver's favourite toys missing, and on his pillow a note that made his blood run cold. He read it 3 times, each pass making the reality sink deeper. I know about Sarah. His first reaction was defensive anger. One night. She was overreacting to one night. Yes, he'd gone to Sarah at midnight, but it had been an emergency. The gallery, the investor crisis, not some romantic tryst. Except even as the justifications formed, Marcus knew they rang hollow. Because it hadn't been one night. It had been months of phone calls, dinners, weekends in London where Sarah made him feel interesting and desired in ways he'd stopped feeling at home. Nothing physical had happened, he'd told himself, that mattered, that as long as he didn't actually sleep with her, it didn't count as betrayal. But emotional infidelity was still infidelity. He just hadn't wanted to see it. He called Sarah immediately. "Marcus?" Her voice was rough from sleep. "What's wrong?" Chloe left. She took Oliver. She knows about us. Silence stretched across the line. Then, quietly, "There is no us, Marcus." "Not really. You know that." "You called me last night. Because I was panicking about losing my gallery. Because you were the one person I could call, who might actually help." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "I never asked you to leave your family. I never wanted to be the reason a marriage ended. But we what? Had dinners, talked on the phone, commiserated about feeling trapped in our respective lives?" She exhaled. "I won't lie and say I don't have feelings for you. But I also won't pretend I ever expected you to actually choose me. You're a duke, Marcus. You have a wife and a son. I was just someone who made you feel less lonely." The truth of it stung. "I don't know what to do. Find your wife. Fix your marriage. Or at the very least, figure out what you actually want before you destroy everything." A pause. I think we both knew this wasn't going anywhere real. We were just too selfish to stop. She hung up, and Marcus sat in his empty bedroom, feeling the full weight of what he'd lost. The family solicitor arrived that afternoon with infuriating news. "Her Grace hasn't stolen anything, Your Grace. She moved funds from her own trust account, perfectly legal. She has every right to take your son, unless you want to pursue custody through the courts." "Courts?" Marcus paled. "That would be public." "Precisely. And, given the circumstances, I'm not sure you'd come out favourably." The solicitor's disapproval was barely masked. "The press has already started speculating about trouble at Evermere. A custody battle would confirm their worst assumptions." By evening, the whispers had begun. Phone calls from concerned relatives pointed questions at the gentlemen's club. The society pages running blind items about a duke whose duchess had mysteriously left town. Marcus's mother, the Dowager Duchess, summoned him with a single curt phone call. "You've made a mess," she said without preamble, when he arrived at her London townhouse. "Not because you strayed, your father did that constantly, but because you lost control. A duke's wife doesn't simply leave. You should have managed this better. Mother, Bring her back, apologise, whatever it takes. The scandal will fade if you can present a united front quickly." But Marcus found himself saying, "What if she won't come back?" His mother's expression was incredulous. "Then make her. You're a duke. Act like one." Except, dukes couldn't actually make people do things anymore. This was 1978, not 1878. And Chloe had vanished completely, using her maiden name, avoiding credit cards, leaving no obvious trail. The private investigator Marcus hired returned after 2 weeks with almost nothing. "She's clever, Your Grace. Using cash, staying off the radar. She doesn't want to be found. The realization hit Marcus like physical blow. His wife wasn't waiting to be fetched. She didn't want his apology or his explanations. She wanted nothing to do with him at all. He spent an evening alone in Oliver's nursery, surrounded by Lego and picture books, and the overwhelming evidence of the family life he'd taken for granted. When had he stopped seeing Chloe? Really seeing her? He remembered their wedding. She'd been 24, bright-eyed, believing in fairy tales. He'd been 30, charmed by her intelligence and her kindness, thinking she'd be the perfect Duchess. But somewhere over 8 years, perfect Duchess had become all he saw. Not Chloe, the person with dreams and interests. Just Chloe the role, managing his household, raising his son, maintaining appearances. She'd mentioned once, early on, that she'd wanted to travel, to maybe open a small gallery or bookshop. He'd smiled and said, "Someday," and then never mentioned it again, because dukes' wives didn't run shops. She'd slowly disappeared into the role he'd needed her to play. And he'd let it happen, because it was convenient. Sarah had been an escape from the performance of his own life. But he'd never stopped to think that Chloe might need an escape too from him. The decision came slowly, over weeks of solitude and unwanted self-reflection. Marcus ended things with Sarah properly. Not dramatically, just an honest conversation where he admitted he'd used her to avoid his own emptiness. "I hope you find someone who actually chooses you," Sarah said. "Not just someone who runs to you when they're lonely." He started therapy in London, telling his secretary it was medical appointments and swearing her to secrecy. The therapist, an older woman who didn't seem impressed by titles, asked uncomfortable questions about his father's affairs, about growing up believing dukes could do as they pleased, about his fear of genuine intimacy. "You treated your marriage like an estate," she observed during their 4th session. "Something to be managed rather than lived in." The insight cut deep because it was true. 3 months after Chloe left, Marcus sat in his therapist's office and admitted out loud, "I don't know if I'm capable of being the husband she deserves." Then the question is, are you willing to become him? For the first time in his life, Marcus was. 3 years is a long time, and no time at all. Chloe stood on the steps of Sea Glass Guest House in April sunshine, watching guests arrive for the spring bank holiday weekend. The building had been transformed, fresh paint, restored Victorian details, window boxes overflowing with flowers. Travel magazines had started featuring it. A hidden gem in Brackenport. One review gushed, "Run by the lovely proprietor, Chloe Marsh, whose attention to detail and genuine warmth make this the perfect coastal escape." Chloe wore jeans and a paint-splattered sweater, her hair in a messy bun, and she'd never felt more herself. "Mum, table 4 needs more tea," Oliver called from inside. He was 9 now, tall for his age, helping serve weekend breakfasts and correcting tourists on local history with serious intensity. Coming. Inside, Isla was manning the kitchen, having expanded from her cafe to help with Chloe's increasingly busy breakfast services. "We're fully booked through August," Isla reported, grinning. "You're officially a success, Marsh." Chloe still used her maiden name. Legally, she was still the Duchess of Evermere. She'd never filed for divorce, stuck in some limbo between old life and new. But here, she was just Chloe, and that felt right. The envelope arrived that afternoon, delivered by post. Formal letterhead. A legal notice about a rural access road. The council wanted to purchase a small plot of land technically belonging to the Evermere estate, adjacent to properties in Brackenport. Chloe's hands shook as she read. The plot in question was directly behind her guest house. "What's wrong?" Isla asked. "Nothing. Everything," I don't know. Chloe set down the letter. Evermere is involved in some land purchase here, which means the Duke might show up, which means I've successfully avoided him for 3 years, and now geography is conspiring against me. She should have expected it. Marcus had rights to see Oliver. They'd arranged supervised visits through solicitors, neutral locations, careful scheduling, but he'd never come to Brackenport. Never seen the life she'd built. The idea of him seeing it now filled her with complicated emotions she didn't want to examine. 2 days later, Marcus Wrenford walked into Seaglass Guesthouse, asking for directions to the council office. Chloe was behind the desk, hands flour-dusty from helping with scones, focused on the booking ledger. She looked up automatically, her customer service smile ready. "Good morning. How can I—" The words died. Marcus stood in her doorway looking older and somehow more real than she remembered, less polished. His hair needed cutting. He wore casual clothes, jeans, a jumper, and there was something different in his posture. Less Duke, more man. They stared at each other for 3 frozen seconds. Then Oliver barreled out of the kitchen. "Mum, we're out of raspberry jam." He saw Marcus and stopped dead. "Daddy?" The word seemed to break the spell. "Hello, Ollie." Marcus's voice was thick. "You've grown so tall." "Ollie, go help Isla in the kitchen," Chloe said quietly. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "But—" "Now, please." Oliver went, glancing back with wide eyes. Marcus and Chloe stood on opposite sides of the front desk, the physical barrier seeming symbolic of everything between them. "You found me," Chloe said finally. "I wasn't looking. I came about the land purchase. I had no idea this was." He gestured vaguely at the guest house. "Yours. It's been mine for 3 years. It's beautiful." He meant it. She could hear it in his voice. "You built this?" "With my own money and my own hands, yes." Silence stretched. So many things to say, and no safe way to say any of them. "Would you like to see Oliver?" Chloe asked, defaulting to practicality. "Properly, I mean. Not just a glimpse." "I'd like that very much, if it's all right with you." "Let me get my coat. We can walk." They took the cliff path, Oliver between them, chattering nervously about school and the guest house and the fossil he'd found on the beach. Marcus listened with focused attention, asking real questions, and Chloe found herself reassessing the man beside her. The Marcus she'd left had barely listened to Oliver, had treated their son like a charming accessory to parade at estate events, but never really engaged with. This Marcus asked about Ollie's favourite subjects, his friends, what he wanted to be when he grew up. "An architect," Oliver announced, "so I can design better hotels than Mum's. No offence, Mum." "None taken," Chloe said, smiling despite the tension. After an hour, Oliver ran ahead to examine tide pools, leaving the adults walking in careful silence. "He needs to know what kind of father you plan to be," Chloe said without preamble. "Not promises, actual plans." "I want to be in his life. Really in it." Marcus kept his eyes on Oliver's distant figure. "I know I haven't been. I was a title and a checkbook, not a parent. But I'm trying to change that." "People don't change, Marcus." "No, but they can grow, if they're willing to do the work." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "I've been in therapy for 3 years, Chloe. Not because I wanted to win you back, though I did, at first, but because I finally looked at myself and hated what I saw." Chloe's breath caught. "Marcus. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know I understand what I did. The affair that wasn't quite an affair, but was still betrayal. The way I took you for granted. The way I let you disappear into being my Duchess instead of being yourself." his voice roughed. "You were right to leave. I'm only sorry it took you leaving to make me see it." 3 years ago, those words would have broken her, would have made her cry, and possibly forgiven him on the spot. Now, Chloe just felt tired. "I need specifics, Marcus, not pretty sentences. If you want to be Oliver's father properly, what does that actually look like?" So they talked, practically, about term time schedules and school holidays, about keeping Oliver out of tabloids, about how to handle Marcus's mother, who'd never accepted Chloe and certainly wouldn't accept Oliver visiting without performing the proper heir role. "We'll manage her," Marcus said, "or I will. Oliver doesn't need to be raised like I was with a title mattering more than being a person." Small moments of humour crept in despite themselves. Marcus admitted he'd learned to do his own laundry and burned holes in 2 shirts before figuring out the iron. Chloe laughed before she could stop herself, then immediately looked away, annoyed that he could still make her laugh. "I should get back," she said. "Guests will be checking in. May I come back next weekend to see Oliver again?" "He'd like that." Marcus hesitated at the guest house steps. "The place really is beautiful, Chloe. You should be proud." "I am." She met his eyes directly. "I built something real here, something that's mine. I'll never go back to being who I was." "I wouldn't want you to." His voice was quiet. "That woman was miserable. This one seems alive." He left, and Chloe stood on her front steps, heart racing, mind spinning. Isla appeared at her elbow. "Well, that was intense." "He's different." "Different enough?" "I don't know." Chloe pressed her hands to her face. "I don't know if I even want to know." But over the following weeks, Marcus kept coming back. Every weekend, like clockwork, staying at a small hotel in town, spending time with Oliver, never pushing Chloe for more than she offered. She watched him teach Oliver to skip stones on the beach, watched him help with homework at the cafe instead of dragging their son to estate events, watched him tip Isla's staff generously and bus tables instead of expecting to be waited on. He was trying, genuinely, consistently trying to be someone worth knowing. And that scared Chloe more than his betrayal ever had, because she'd built this life specifically to be free of him. And now he was showing up as someone she might actually be able to forgive. 5. 6 months after Marcus reappeared, winter arrived early and brought with it an invitation. Chloe stared at the thick cream envelope with the Evermere crest embossed in gold. Inside, in Marcus's mother's precise handwriting, "The Dowager Duchess of Evermere requests the pleasure of your company and Master Oliver's at Christmas celebrations at Evermere Hall." "She's inviting us to Christmas," Chloe said flatly, showing Isla the invitation. "That's good, isn't it?" "That's political. She wants us to perform the happy family for society, prove that everything's fine, no scandal, just a duchess who took a little break." "Are you going to go?" Chloe crumpled the invitation. "Absolutely not. I'm not performing for anyone ever again." She called Marcus that evening, her voice tight with anger. "Your mother's invitation." "I know. I told her not to send it." That surprised her. "You did?" "You left for a reason, Chloe. I'm not going to pressure you back into that life just to save face for Christmas photos." He paused. "Actually, I was going to ask if I could spend Christmas in Brackenport this year. With you and Ollie, if you'll have me. At my guest house? I'd book a room, pay like any other guest. But I'd like to be near my son for the holiday. And near you, if you'll allow it." Chloe sat with the phone pressed to her ear, thrown completely. Evermere Hall has had a duke in residence every Christmas for 300 years. Then it can survive 1 year without me. Some traditions need to break. They celebrated Christmas at Sea Glass Guest House. Small, strange, nothing like the formal affairs Chloe remembered. Marcus helped Oliver build a massive Lego set. They walked the empty beach on Christmas morning. They ate at Isla's cafe with the handful of locals who had nowhere else to go, and somehow it felt more real than any elaborate estate dinner Chloe had ever attended. Late on Christmas night, after Oliver had gone to bed, Chloe and Marcus sat in the empty cafe. Isla had given them the key, told them to lock up when they finished. The dishwasher hummed. Fairy lights twinkled, and Marcus said, without preamble, "I've spent 3.5 years in therapy, learning things I should have known all along. That my father's affairs weren't normal, that using status as a shield from intimacy was cowardice. That I married you and then immediately started running away from the vulnerability that comes with actually being married." Chloe wrapped her hands around her cooling tea. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand that I know what I did. Not the surface version, I had an emotional affair and hurt you, the deeper truth." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I was lonely in our marriage. But instead of talking to you, instead of admitting I was struggling, I found someone who made me feel less lonely without requiring any actual emotional work from me. Sarah. Sarah was a symptom, not the disease. The disease was me being terrified of real intimacy, of being seen as something other than Duke of Evermere." His voice dropped. "You tried to connect with me, Chloe, for years, and I kept you at arm's length because that felt safer than being vulnerable." Chloe's throat tightened. "You made me feel invisible." "I know, and I'm sorrier for that than I have words for." He met her eyes. "I don't have any right to ask you for anything, but I need to say this. I'd like us to try again. Not as Duke and Duchess playing roles for society, but as Marcus and Chloe, two people who share a son and a history, seeing if we can build something real this time. And if it doesn't work, then I'll still be here as Ollie's father. I won't disappear. I won't punish you for protecting yourself." He spread his hands. "I'm not offering you a fairy tale, Chloe. I'm offering you honesty and work, and someone who's finally doing the therapy to figure out how to be a decent partner." Chloe studied him, this man who'd hurt her so deeply, who'd also given her the push she needed to find herself. "I need conditions, real ones, non-negotiable." "Name them." "I keep Sea Glass Guest House. I keep my independence. I keep my own money in my own accounts." Her voice hardened. "I will never again be financially dependent on you or anyone." "Agreed. If we try this, and I mean, if we start with therapy, together, not me coming back to Evermere and pretending everything's fine. I've already found someone in London who specializes in couples rebuilding after infidelity. I have her card in my wallet." That caught her off guard. "You've been planning this." "I've been hoping for this. There's a difference." Marcus smiled slightly. "I learned in therapy not to assume I know what you want, so I prepared for multiple possibilities. And if I feel the old patterns returning, if I start disappearing again, then you walk. No arguments, no lawyers sent to fetch you back, no guilt trips or manipulation." He said it firmly. "I never want you to feel trapped again, Chloe, even if that means losing you permanently." She sat with his words, testing them for cracks, for hidden conditions, for the control she'd lived under for 8 years. She found none. "I need time," she said finally, "to think, to talk to Ollie, to not feel rushed into a decision because it's Christmas and you're being nice. Take all the time you need. I'll be here." January brought bitter cold and clarity. Chloe sat with Isla one afternoon after closing, the cafe empty except for them and their cooling coffee. What do you actually want? Isla asked. Not what you think you should want, not what would be easier or harder. What does your gut say? Chloe closed her eyes. I want to see if the man he's becoming is someone I could actually love. Not the man I married, not the title or the fantasy, the real person underneath. And if he's not, then I've lost nothing. I'll still have this life, this place, my independence. She opened her eyes. But if he is... Isla, what if we could actually build something real this time? Then you'd be the bravest person I know, choosing to try again after being hurt that badly. In February, Chloe gave Marcus her answer. Not in a romantic setting, not over dinner. She called him on a Tuesday afternoon while sorting laundry. I'll try, she said without preamble. But we're doing this my way. Therapy twice a month in London. You visit Brackenport regularly. I'm not moving back to Evermere, unless and until I'm ready. And that might be never. Whatever you need. I'm serious, Marcus. I will walk again if I need to. And next time, I won't feel guilty about it. I wouldn't want you to. His voice was thick. Thank you, Chloe, for giving me a chance I don't deserve. You're right, you don't deserve it. She folded a towel with sharp precision. But Oliver deserves parents who actually try. So we'll try. Therapy was brutal. They sat in a London office twice a month and excavated 8 years of marriage. The therapist, Dr. Reeves, didn't let either of them hide behind pleasantries. Chloe, you say Marcus made you invisible. But did you ever actually tell him you were unhappy? I shouldn't have had to. That's avoidance. Did you use your words, or did you wait for him to read your mind? And to Marcus, you say you were lonely. What did you do to address that before seeking comfort elsewhere? I suppose I didn't. You supposed correctly. They fought. They cried. They walked out of sessions furious with each other and furious with Dr. Reeves for making them look at uncomfortable truths. But they kept going. March brought Oliver's 10th birthday. They celebrated at Sea Glass Guest House, Marcus, Chloe, Ollie, Isla, and her son Danny, a handful of school friends. It was loud and chaotic, and full of cake-smeared faces and water balloon fights that soaked everyone. Marcus ended up drenched, laughing harder than Chloe had ever seen him laugh, and when Oliver hugged him fiercely and said, "Best birthday ever, Dad," something in Chloe's chest loosened. That night, after guests had left and Oliver had crashed into exhausted sleep, Marcus and Chloe stood on the guest house steps watching the sea. "He's happy," Marcus said quietly. "Really happy. You've given him a good life here." "We've given him a good life. You've shown up, Marcus. Consistently. That matters." He turned to her. "I love you. I know I have no right to say it. I know I destroyed your trust. But I need you to know. I am in love with you, Chloe. Not the Duchess version. You. The woman who burns scones and swears at flat-pack furniture and built an entire life from scratch." Chloe's eyes burned. "I don't know if I love you back yet. The man I married, I loved him. But he turned out to be a performance. You're different now, but I don't know if what I feel is love or just hope." "That's fair. But I'm not closing the door." She took his hand tentatively. "I'm not opening it all the way either, but it's not closed." Summer brought a shift in rhythm. Marcus rented a cottage near Brackenport for the season, working remotely on estate business while spending evenings with Chloe and Oliver. They fell into a pattern that felt almost normal: dinners together, beach walks, helping with guest house maintenance. One evening, Chloe found Marcus on a ladder, painting trim on the guest house exterior. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I want to." He kept painting. "This is your place, your accomplishment. I'd like to contribute something other than money for once. You painted that trim crooked. Did I? He looked, saw she was right, and laughed. I'm better with accounts than actual work, aren't I? Deeply mediocre, Chloe agreed, but she was smiling. August brought the conversation they'd been avoiding. Oliver had been accepted to an exceptional school. A boarding school with a mathematics program, perfect for his talents. It would mean leaving Brackenport. It would mean coordinating custody more carefully. It would mean decisions neither of them could make alone. They sat on the beach after Oliver had gone to bed, the sound of waves filling the silence. He should go, Chloe said finally. It's an incredible opportunity. Agreed. But that means we need to figure out what we're doing. As a family. Marcus picked up a piece of sea glass, turning it in his fingers. I don't want him shuttling between two completely separate lives. He needs stability. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we get serious about rebuilding this marriage. Not for appearances, not to make Oliver's logistics easier, but because I think we're actually doing it. Building something real. He looked at her. Aren't we? Chloe wrapped her arms around her knees. I think so. I'm not where I was 3 years ago. I don't hate you anymore. That's encouraging. I don't trust you completely yet either. That's fair. But she took a breath. I like who you're becoming. And I like who I am when I'm with you now. I'm not disappearing. I'm not performing. We're just two people trying to figure out how to be married. Is that enough? I think it might be. She met his eyes. I'll never go back to Evermere the way I left it. I won't be that Duchess again. But maybe I could be a different kind of Duchess. One who runs a guest house and speaks her mind and doesn't apologize for taking up space. Marcus smiled. I'd like to see you try to stop that woman from existing. She's terrifying, and I'm in awe of her. They worked out a plan. Oliver would attend the school. Marcus would split time between Evermere, London and Brackenport. Chloe would keep Seaglass Guesthouse, hiring a manager to help when she needed to be away. They'd attend couples therapy monthly instead of bi-weekly. And on a September morning, with rain threatening, Marcus asked Chloe to marry him again. Not with a ring, not on one knee, just sitting at the cafe over coffee, Isla discreetly giving them privacy. I'd like to renew our vows, Marcus said. Not the big society wedding with 500 guests, something small. Just us, Oliver, Isla, and Doctor. Reeves if she wants to come. I'd like to promise you things I actually mean this time. Such as? Such as I promise to keep showing up, to keep doing the work, to never make you feel invisible again. He reached across the table. I promise to love the real you, not the role. To support your dreams even when they don't fit society's expectations. To be your partner, not your lord. Chloe's throat tightened. Those are big promises. I've had 4 years to practice meaning what I say. I'm better at it now. And if I can't promise to love you forever, if the best I can do is promise to try, then promise to try. That's enough. That's everything. They renewed their vows on the beach in October, with Oliver as witness and Isla crying behind her camera. Chloe wore jeans and a cream sweater. Marcus wore the jumper Ollie had picked out. Dr. Reeves officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. The vows were simple. I promise to choose you every day, even when it's hard. I promise to see you always. I promise to be brave enough to tell you when I'm scared. I promise to listen, even when I don't want to hear it. They kissed while Oliver cheered, and the sea crashed behind them, and it felt nothing like their first wedding. No performance, no expectations, no fairy tale. Just two people who'd broken each other and then done the hard work of healing together. That night, in the guest house that Chloe had built with her own money and her own hands, she and Marcus lay in bed, listening to the sea. "I never returned to Evermere as the woman who left," Chloe said quietly. "I promised myself I wouldn't." "You didn't. But I'm here with you anyway. How did that happen?" Marcus pulled her closer. "You walked away when you needed to. You built a life that was yours. And when I showed up, not demanding, not assuming, but actually trying, you were brave enough to let me try to earn you back. It was terrifying. I know. It still is sometimes. I know that too." He kissed her forehead. "But we're doing it anyway." Chloe smiled in the darkness. "Yes, we are." She'd taken her son and £1,000,000 and disappeared into a new life. She'd sworn she'd never return to the version of herself that waited for a man to choose her. And she hadn't. But she had chosen carefully, with clear eyes and firm boundaries, to build something new with the man who'd learned, finally, to choose her back. Not because she needed him, not because of duty or title or fairy tales, but because they'd both done the work to become people worth choosing. And that, Chloe thought as sleep pulled her under, was worth every difficult conversation, every therapy session, every moment of uncertainty. She hadn't returned to her old life. She'd built a new one, and this time she was walking into it on her own 2 feet, with a partner beside her instead of a title above her. Dear listeners, Chloe and Marcus proved that sometimes love means walking away to find yourself, and sometimes it means being brave enough to try again when someone finally does the work to deserve you. That real partnership is built not on fairy tales, but on consistent effort, honest communication, and the courage to set boundaries that protect your own soul. If this story touched your heart, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing for more tales where women choose themselves first and build lives on their own terms. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Could you give someone a second chance after such betrayal? What boundaries would you need? Share your reflections in the comments below. Until next time, may you always know that walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you can do, and that coming back, if you choose to, should only happen on your terms. This is a reminder that you are never required to return to a version of yourself that made you small. Choose yourself first, always.